Today I want to talk about Ohio State getting games on Big Fox with dates and one more, at least right now, announcement. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, we now know the location, at least network-wise, of 3 Ohio State games in 2 times, right? Talked earlier today about Ohio State, Oregon kicking off on Big Fox on September 11th at noon Eastern time. 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, right? And that's going to be a huge game because I expect Oregon and Ohio State will be top 25 teams, if not top 10 teams, if not top 5 teams. And I think that game is going to have a lot to say about who wins or who gets into the college football playoff from the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. Earlier today, we got even 2 more announcements. Minnesota and Ohio State will play on September 2nd to open the season. The time of that game is to be announced, and it is going to be on Big Fox, and I'm very excited about that. And then the game, November 27th, that's a big noon game on Fox. That is the one that everybody is looking forward to because Ohio State, Michigan is perhaps the biggest rivalry in all of college sports. They've been playing that game since the 19th century. Last year was the first time in like 6 decades in which the game did not get played. It was a downer for a lot of people, not necessarily because we thought Michigan was going to be that competitive, but because a lot of people really look forward to that game annually. And people set their watches, their pilgrimages, everything they want to do, depending on who is hosting the game, Ann Arbor or Columbus, to it. This year, it's got some intrigue because both teams are going to be starting new quarterbacks. Ohio State feels like they got a lead here with 2 4-stars and a 5-star, and C.J. Stroud, Kyle McCord, Jack Miller all have the goods to run Ryan Day's offense and take advantage of that really outstanding offensive system. Michigan is either going to start Alan Bowman, who transferred in from Texas Tech as grad transfer. Last time he was healthy, threw for all the yards and looked really good. They also got IMG graduate J.J. McCarthy on the roster, but when I talked to T.J. Houshmandzadeh and Jordan Palmer, they're big on Cade McNamara, right? And he showed a lot in the Rutgers game, triple overtime win for Michigan. But I'm also interested to see what Mike McDonald's defense looks like. He's got one of my favorite kiddos playing safety for him in Dax Hill. I think he's a first-round draft pick. I think he's that sort of a talent. And that means that you're going to have Tulsa playing free safety for Ohio State and Tulsa playing free safety for Michigan in the game. Like, for me, being from Tulsa, living in Tulsa, having gone to Booker T. Memorial, graduated the University of Tulsa, so proud of Josh Proctor and Dax Hill. In that way, we win it, right? We own this. We on our way up. And I'm so excited that those dudes are going to get a marquee stage on network television to show what they are made of and what really is going down here in T-Town. Now, Minnesota's interesting because we're going into year 2 of Mike Sanford Jr. being offensive coordinator since Kurt Soroka went to Penn State, got fired, replaced by Mike Yurcich. But for Tanner Morgan, this is a really big year because he gets to prove whether or not he's any good at this. And I wrote this down because I want to make sure I get this right. So in 2019, Tanner Morgan plays 13 games, completes 66% of his passes for 3,200 yards. That's 10.2 yards per attempt with 30 passing touchdowns and just 7 interceptions. Outstanding year for him. That year, he also had Tyler Johnson and Rashad Bateman at wide receiver. Both of those guys are NFL draft picks. Both of those guys are outstanding wideouts. 2020 basically lived on Rashad Bateman for 7 games, 106 of 183 for 57.9% completion and just 1,375 yards. That's 7.5 yards per attempt. That's down with 7 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions. That's not what you want. And this year he does not have either one of those guys to throw the passes to, and it feels like Tanner Morgan has been tied to great wide receivers, and if he doesn't have great wide receivers, he suffers. But last year was also the year of Muhammad Ibrahim, who quietly was the best running back in the Big Ten. And the numbers back that up. And I think that's what you're going to see a lot from Minnesota this year is a steady diet of them feeding Muhammad Ibrahim, 5'10", 210 pounds out of Baltimore, 201 attempts for 1,076 yards. That's just like 300 less than Tanner Morgan threw for last year. 15 touchdowns, 5.4 yards per carry average. The last game he played, the first game he played against Illinois. Well, that wasn't the first game, but the game against Illinois. They win that game 41-14. He has 30 touches for 224 yards on the ground. The next game, 33 touches, 144 yards on the ground. Pretty outstanding when you look at just how productive he was, especially given the touches that they gave him. And I think we're going to get to see real quick, fast, in a hurry whether or not Ohio State's front seven is up to the challenge of stopping really good run attacks, because that is what I expect Minnesota to do this year. They're going to run the ball, play defense, try to take advantage of them, play action pass on one-on-one in-man coverage. So you're going to get to see whether or not the four linebackers that are replacing Tuff Borland, Pete Warner, Justin Hilliard, and Baron Browning are really that good, to say nothing of the defensive line, which I feel is going to feature Zach Harrison, Haskell Garrett, and Jack Sawyer, among many others, right? I'm sure there are dudes out there that y'all know as Ohio State fans that are going to have their come up. Now, also in here, I think we're going to find out a lot about CJ Stroud, Jack Miller, or Kyle McCord, because you ought to be able to go after that defense, running the ball, but also throwing the ball. And by the time we get to the end of the season, November 27th, we're going to know what Ohio State is made of. We're going to know what Michigan is made of. And Michigan has a really interesting schedule this year, too, because they got a non-conference game against Washington, in which case I think we might see Sam Heward start for Washington as a true freshman quarterback. I wouldn't want to start my career on the big house, but then again, in the big house. But then again, Max Johnson, as a true freshman, got his first start on the road in the swamp, came out with the biggest win all year for LSU, right? In the LSU game, Sam Heward has an opportunity to go into the big house and get a W. It ain't like it's been a fortress, right? Like, people have gone in there and won here lately, and Jim Harbaugh is under tremendous amounts of fire. But I think that leveled off with Warren Manuel doing a job and getting a deal that works for Michigan that says, basically, Jim Harbaugh gets to keep what he kills. So if they win a bunch of games, they're going to pay him because he won a bunch of games. If he doesn't win a bunch of games, they don't have to pay him. It's all incentive-based. And I think that's a really good place to be if you are Michigan. But his fortunes change if they beat Ohio State. It's that simple. So you might build your entire year toward that game, and I don't see why you wouldn't. Like, I gave Tom Herman a lot of hell because he built that Texas team to beat LSU to start the season. Like, he ran them, he practiced them really hard, and they were in that game, right? They lose it by 7, 45-38, closest game, really, that we felt that LSU was in all year. You have some thoughts, I'm sure, about the Auburn game, but that was the game where I thought they could have caught Nell, because Tom Herman had that Texas team primed and ready to go, and they just fell short. If I'm Michigan and I'm Jim Harbaugh, I build my entire year around the game. I build everything out toward winning that game. Ohio State does it every year, and it works for them on a number of different levels, but you got to want it more, and you have to fight the image that Michigan has of, wearing ties to the games and not really being gutter about it. Ohio State, get it how they live. People talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, people talk about the Browns, but the pro team in the state of Ohio is the Buckeyes. You need to affect that sort of ferocity at Michigan, because I think it's a little too entitled right now. You got to get back to, we going to hit you in the mouth. We going to run football. We going to play the kind of football that has become synonymous, not just with Jim Harbaugh when it's going right, but also Bo Schembechler in those years and Lloyd Carr in those years. Like, that's who you want to be. Run the ball, play defense, and I think Josh Gaddis is trying to marry all of that, but also taking advantage of some of the talent you have at wide receiver, some of the talent you have at tailback, and certainly groom one of these quarterbacks to be in a position to help you. And I think J.J. McCarthy has the best upside. Cade McNamara and Alan Bowman probably going to go at each other for the starting job. And if you're looking to push the ball down the field, I think you're going to look to Alan Bowman to do that. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.